Today we're going to cover the Westwood High School sophomore presentation. First thing first, let's cover who are your counselors. So your counselor should be the same as last year. Depending on your last name, where it falls, this will be who your counselor is. The only thing I like to point out is Miss Thompson was married over the summer, so it's now is Julie Martinez. So just for her email, it's Julie_Martinez. We've covered this with the students, but I want to make sure parents, you are aware. Next, I want to point out the counseling website. And I know I showed this last year, but it's so important. I can't stress enough going to this website and taking advantage of the resources we offer. So when you go to the counseling website, it is broken up into very clear things. So first thing, ACC. If your child is thinking they're going to want to take ACC classes this coming summer, y'all can go ahead and already start looking at the information website here. If you're wanting to see how Westwood overall looks, you can look at our school profile. You can see where our past seniors have gone, including I put all the UT data here if you're wanting to track that. Eventually, when your child is coming towards the end of junior year, we'll be working at your junior conference on applying to colleges. Everything you need for course registration and selection. This presentation is under the grade level presentations. We include all grade levels here. So if you want to look ahead or recap what we also covered in freshman year, you can see all that here. SAT and ACT testing. If you're wanting to get some test prep, whether it cost or free, we have all of that here, plus all the dates the SAT and ACT is offered. NCAA, if your child's an athlete and is eventually wanting to play in college, we've got a whole section on the NCAA Eligibility Center. Senior year, we talk about scholarships and financial aid, and this is where we put our running list for our upperclassmen. This is a big one we're going to talk about in this presentation is career assessments and explorations. If your student is still trying to decide maybe what they want to study in college, what they want to do in the future after Westwood, this is going to be a great place, and we'll cover it a little bit more in depth in a little bit. Later on this year, we'll put summer programs and internships and camps. This comes more in the spring. That's just when colleges and stuff have that on their agenda. Everything on how to calculate GPA and rank. We have mental health resources. All different types of stuff is here. So just FYI, I want to make sure you're taking advantage of this because so many times we'll get questions and I'm like, oh, that's on the counseling website. It's already there. So I just want to make sure you're aware. Next, rank and GPA. And I talked about this last year at your freshman conference, but I think it's also another important thing to make sure you're really understanding. So in regards to GPA, there's a 5.0 GPA. This is what students' rank is based off of. It's weighted. So it's just the core classes in foreign languages. And in the state of Texas, computer science is considered a foreign language. Whether that makes sense to you or not, that's how the state of Texas is. So that those do count. So if it's an advanced course, whether it's advanced, TAG, IB Prep, AP, IB, you get 10 extra points. So if a student makes a 100 in an on-level course, they earn 5 points. That's a perfect GPA for an on-level course. If they make a 90, it's a 4 point, and so on. There's a handout here. If you click on the 5.0, what you'll want to do to be able to read it easier, you just need to click download and it'll pop up and you can come right up here to the top to turn it. So for 5.0, anything that it is advanced, you get the 10 points versus an on-level. So just to kind of show you this, an on-level course, you make a 100, you get 5. 90, you get 4. 80, you get 3. So if you took all on-level courses and made a 100 in everything, theoretically your GPA would be perfect, 5 out of 5. Because our GPA is on the 5.0. If every class you took was advanced and you made a 100 on everything, again, this would be theoretically, technically your GPA would be a 6 out of 5. So you could go above perfect by taking all advanced courses and making A's in them. And this is where I always say, because sometimes families will be like, oh, well, then my kid has to take everything advanced. Well, here's the thing. If you're spending hours in a class, so, I think of myself back in high school, I was a math and science student. Those were my strengths. I became a science teacher. before I was a counselor. Those were my strengths versus English and social studies weren't. I did fine, but I had to really work for them. So if I was spending hours a night to try to make a low A, in reality, I could probably have spent a lot less time and made a high A, and it would have been around the same GPA points, and I probably would have been a lot less stressed. Um, and I could have probably spent more time in the math and sciences, which is where I loved, and maybe with all my extra activities, so it would have been a bonus add-on where I could maybe involved in more clubs because I wasn't spending hours a day to try to get in this area in an advance versus I could have done it on level and really balanced my time more. And that's the key to all of this is you want to find balance because this is all an average. So you want to make sure you're doing the best you can with the time you have allotted. Um, Also, to help you kind of calculate, you'll use that handout, but we also took a transcript and showed you and made notes on here how you can calculate your own GPA if you're wanting to do it for yourself. Okay, endorsements versus academies. So an academy, this means you take 3 to 4 courses in a sequence. Let's click here and you'll see it. So for example, animation, if you do this pathway, you will get a sash to wear at graduation. Also in the graduation program, it'll have a little symbol next to your name saying you earned an Academy of Business and Industry. So that's what you get for an academy if you complete 3 to 4 years. You get a sash to wear at graduation, and your name in the program will have a little symbol next to it. This is completely optional. Academies are purely if you want those things versus an endorsement is not optional. An endorsement you have to have to graduate. You have to have one. Some people are like, well, should I try to get 2, 3, or 4, or 5? It does not matter. Colleges are not looking at whether it's an academy or endorsement. That's not something colleges are looking at. They just want to know you've met the graduation requirements. And a graduation requirement is you must have one endorsement. These do not give you sashes. These are purely an endorsement. So the first one that most students get is the multidisciplinary. This is by taking the 4x4. So 4 math, 4 science, 4 social studies, 4 English, all 4 years of high school. So most students already have that one. There are ones for business and industry that do line up with kind of the academy course sequence. Same thing for public service, STEM, and arts and humanities. There are a few different ones, like under STEM, if you take 5 math courses or 5 science courses while you're in high school, or maybe in middle school, if you started algebra or geometry in middle school, you can get STEM. Same thing for arts and humanities. If you take 5 social studies credits or 4 foreign languages, you can also get an arts and humanities. But again, if you take 5 math or 5 sciences and receive STEM, you don't get a sash for that. Versus if you took 4 computer science courses or 4 engineering classes, you would get a STEM. You would get a sash for the academy. So same thing for arts and humanities. If you take 4 years of art or 4 years of theater or 4 years of band, you're going to get a sash for your academy. However, if you took 4 Spanish credits, you're not going to get a sash for that. That's purely an endorsement. So I just want to make sure that's clarified. And there's a handout here that helps you walk through the different endorsements. Okay, STAR, EOC requirements. So in order to graduate high school, you must pass these 5 end of course STAR tests. So Algebra 1, English 1, English 2, Biology, and US History. You will need to pass the 5 of those in order to graduate high school. Okay, so we're going to just start basic course selection for next year. You won't finalize your courses until January, but we want you to go ahead and start thinking ahead and having these conversations as a family of what classes you might want to take, because we don't want you having to decide within 2-week window in January. This is when you should start thinking about it. You can be asking friends, you can be asking older siblings, you can be having conversations with your teachers, you can be researching on our counseling website under that virtual course selection. You can read your teacher's course descriptions of future classes. This is when to do all that. So just to keep in mind, before you graduate, you've got to have the 4x4, so a core class every year. You have to have 2 years of the same foreign language, a year of fine art, a year of PE, and 7 other electives. But one thing I want to point out here for 2 years of the same foreign language is that computer science. So computer science does count for high school graduation. However, colleges do not recognize it as a foreign language. So it's kind of tricky. So the state of Texas says it's a foreign language, but colleges say, no, that's not a foreign language. You need to go with more traditional Spanish, German, French, American Sign Language. Those are the ones you need to actually do for colleges. So I just have to preface that right now, that those are the ones we're going to encourage you to take for your low credit requirement. Okay, so for English, so what you're going to do is you're going to look in the 10th grade column because that is where you're at this year. So if you're in English 2, you're probably going to want to move on to maybe English 3 next year. If you're in Advanced English 2, you're probably deciding between the AP or the IB track. Or if you're thinking whether you've been in English 2, Advanced English 2, and you're thinking I might like to go the dual credit route, you can go into dual credit English 3. So both the AP IB and the dual credit, you would all walk away hopefully with college credit. The big difference is AP and IB, you earn your college credit by passing a test at the end of the course. So even if you make a 99 all year long, but you don't pass the AP or IB test, you wouldn't get the college credit. However, if you're making an A in that class, you're being prepared and you're doing well, so you probably should earn that credit. Versus dual credit, if you pass the class, you earn the college credit. You do have to go through this spring the whole ACC process. Make sure you are college ready by whether it's the PSAT or the TSI. There is a process you have to follow. So you have to get onto the ACC website. So you can't just check that one and then not do anything because you won't be eligible to take it. So pay attention to your deadlines. I cannot stress enough if you're going to go the dual credit route. Math. Again, look at the 10th grade column, find the class you're in, and then you would move over to the 11th grade. So if you're in geometry this year, you would go over to algebra 2. So again, look through where you're at, and then you're going to move on over. Okay, IB math. So if you're going to be going into the IB pathway, your math might look a little bit different. So again, find where you're at on the 10th grade level and then go over to the 11th grade pathway. Because again, you might have to take an IB math course next year. So just want to make sure you're following the 10th to 11th grade pathway. Social studies. Again, find where you're at as a 10th grader, and then you'll move over to the 11th grade column to find out what you would want to take. We do have a lot of students at the end of 10th grade who do choose to take an ACC course, the ACC US History. If that's something you're wanting to do, you will still sign up for US History or APUSH, the AP version for 11th grade. You'll just put as a backup, planning to take ACC US History. This is what I'd want to take in its place if I get the credit done. So just FYI. Next for science. Again, you figure out where you're at in 10th grade year, and then you look over to the 11th grade column to choose what you would want to take. Again, the foreign languages, these are the ones we recommend because this is what colleges recognize as actual foreign languages. Again, remember, it must be 2 years of the same language. So just make sure you've done that before you've graduated. Everybody has to have a year of fine art and a year of PE to graduate. Fine art's pretty straightforward on what you have to get done. I will say for PE, band and dance, these give you like a good bang for your buck. Band, as long as you're in band for 2 years, you not only get your fine art credit, but you get your PE credit covered because you get PE credit for marching season, so during the football season. Dance is awesome. You take 1 year of dance, so one class takes up one spot. You get a full year of fine art and a full year of PE. So you get 2 credits for one class period. So that's pretty awesome. Also, if you're an ROTC, that can also count for your PE credit as well, your first time taking ROTC. Okay, electives. We offer tons of different things depending on what you're interested in. So you will choose which electives over your 4 years that you're going to want to take. And remember, if you complete the pathway, you get a sash at graduation. So what I've done is for all the electives, I put in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade column. So you would look at the class you're in and then be able to move over to 11th grade. However, I know some people might not have started, let's say animation, until the 10th grade. So you would just go, okay, if I'm in digital media in 11th grade, I'll take animation 1. And then in 12th grade, I'd take animation 2. So you might need to adjust it based off the year you started your program, because some people do change their mind and start over in 10th grade. So again, you would be going through your pathway. Again, looking at where you're at right now, over, and then move over one block to see the next class in the sequence. So I've tried to go through all the different elective pathways, and the good thing about this video is you can pause it whenever you need to make sure you have the time to write down what you need. Okay, so other resources. So these are things that I just shared with you on the counseling website, that virtual course selection. So when you get here, it has the general timeline for what the spring will look like in regards to registering. But if you click here, you can see that virtual choice sheet where I talked about, where you can click on any class and you can get a full course description written by our teachers. Okay. If this goes back to where I was talking about GPA and rank, you need to make sure your schedule is balanced. If what I want you to do when you're picking your 8 classes, choose the 4 ones that you feel are going to be the hardest. There's a chance that the 4 hardest classes are going to end up all on one day next year. So your white day might be your 4 hardest classes. Could you be okay with that? Because we do not rearrange schedules to say, oh, I want these classes on one day. We can't do that. So could you live with your schedule if your 4 hardest classes were on one day? I can't stress that enough. Okay, now I want to talk about your resume and making sure it's built for next year. Okay, so the reason we're talking about your resume is this is something you're going to need for college applications. And so we like breaking down every year the things you can do. So last year at your freshman conference, your counselor gave you a resume sample. If you have lost it, there is a hard copy of it right here that you can click on and download. It's going to cover not only your academics, but all the things you're doing outside of Westwood and within Westwood. So let me click on the resume sample. Okay, when you get it, you must download it for the formatting to look correct. So give it just a second because it is a Word document, so it takes a little bit longer. Okay, so when you get this document, you would type in your information over it. You would put in your classes, you would make it completely yours, your test scores. Again, I made this document. I had to make it up, so I didn't write tons because I was never on the Sundancers drill team. So your description should be much longer than this, but these are just things, examples of what you would want to include. So these are your extracurricular activities. So things you're doing not only with Westwood organizations, but things outside of Westwood. Any leadership that you take on within these activities. And again, you might not have tons right now as a sophomore, but maybe a junior or senior year, the option presents itself that you could run for an officer in one of your activities. Take advantage of it. Push yourself and do that. You don't need to have 20 leadership positions, but if you have one that you spend time with, that's going to be great. Awards and honors that you have received within all these activities. What do you do during your summers? They want to know you're doing things besides just watching Netflix and playing video games. So what are you doing in your summers? And again, they don't have to be Westwood related. Volunteer work that you do through your 4 years. And this is where I can't stress enough, document this as you go. If you try to wait till senior year and think back to 9th grade year on, all the volunteer work you've done, you probably are going to forget some things. So keep up with this document and add to it as you go. Work experience. This can be like a real job, or it can be things like pet sitting or house sitting or mowing the neighbor's yard. If you're doing something, colleges want to know, because what they're gaining from this area is that you're reliable, people can depend on you. That's what they're wanting to see. They're wanting to get those characteristics of you. If you need help finding volunteer activities, there's some things here listed where you can definitely get involved. So let's close out of this. And again, you've got the next 3 years to build up those sections. So don't shy away and get involved. Okay. So this is where I talked about the career assessments and explorations when I was talking about the website. If you're not sure what you're wanting to study or what you want to do as a future job, I would go to our career assessment and exploration. I have them set up by interest, personality, value-based, and ability. I would recommend your student take at least one of these free assessments under each section. because then it's going to say, based off your interest, we think you might want to do maybe these 10 jobs. Then if you do one based off personality, these are maybe the 10 jobs we would think for you. And then you can compare them. Are there any things that line up on both? Then go to the value-based one. Take it. And again, these are the jobs they would think would be good for you. Again, does anything match up that you saw both on interest and personality? We're trying to find something that's kind of like a commonality across them all. Same thing for ability and skill. They're all assessing something very different. So how you'll see it when you click on the link, again, you'll see it resource. You can choose from any of these, or you can take all of them if you want. Interest-based, and so on. So all of this is here for you to explore and go under. Okay, final reminders. Don't procrastinate. Everything counts. Colleges are going to look at the 4 years you were in high school to make their decision. So you need to stay on top of your schoolwork. You need to make sure you're not forgetting your club meetings. You need to stay on top of it. And part of that is by checking your grades in Hack daily and checking your student email. So many times we'll send emails out to y'all about volunteer opportunities, club meetings. And eventually senior year, it'll be scholarships and things like that. If you're not in the habit of checking your email, you're going to miss something that you wish you had taken advantage of. And this is something good to get in the habit, because eventually when you're in college or in a future job, you're responsible for responding to your email and staying up to date on it. So you need to get in that habit of practicing that. And then last thing is take advantage of what your teachers offer you. Ask for help. Go to tutorials. Flex in if you're having, problems with something. Don't be embarrassed. Get in there and get some help. Because again, you're responsible for you and your transcript and your grades. So don't let anybody else influence how you're doing. Take control. And I would also say do your homework the day it's assigned. That way, if you need help, you can go in the next 2 mornings to get in there for help or go into Flex. And remember, Flex cuts off at midnight, so you need to make sure you are thinking ahead and planning. Again, that comes back to that don't procrastinate, plan ahead. Okay, I hope this helped get y'all through sophomore year and really give you some things to think about.